TikTok. It's time to rock. Welcome to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure as ever on a Sunday here in New Zealand to introduce to you the A team of the channel.
I like that. Who's B.A. Baracus?
None of us. That would be dangerous.
This is no disrespect to Johnny and John, who are the Z team of the channel.
Oh.
Yes. Good to see you, gentlemen.
With you. Yes. Good morning, all. How are we doing?
It looks very strange for me sitting here in the top left.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're going to do this show because we don't have any pics to show, folks, which changes the way that we do things if we put on the pics. So I still haven't managed yet to nail out how to do that. But yeah, so we're doing things a little bit differently, folks. We're looking forward to doing a wrap-up of the 24 nights. We were talking about this backstage, folks, so we intend to do this all in one show. Can I invite you, please, to go and check out the show that we did yesterday on the channel with Johnny, Jim, and also Johnny B Guitars. We spoke about some interesting things there on that stream, Brad and Simon. It was a good show.
Yeah, it was a good show. Lots of interesting.
I was lurking in the background while I was working. I was actually on a ride-on lawnmower cutting an oval while I was listening in my.
Oh, fantastic! Good to see that you were working, bro.
Cutting it oval.
Before the Rock Professor does a shout out, we've got a couple of shout outs that we have to do. Obviously, Simon, some big news.
Yeah,
and we've ranked one of his albums, haven't we, on this channel?
I think we have. We haven't done the band.
I'm pretty sure we've done music from Big Pink, or we've done a show talking about it.
Oh, we might have done a show talking about it. I don't think we've done a ranking the tracks, but
okay.
We are of course talking about the passing of the great Robbie Robertson from the band. And Ronnie Hawkins' Hawks, Bob Dylan's backing band in the 60s, in the crazy years when he went electric, and they just went on that tour, and every single concert everybody booed the second half, which is a kind of extraordinary reaction. I don't know how they carried on through that as a band, as a thing, but I know that Robertson and and Dylan were tight in that era, very tight, about and working it out. So, and of course his, seminal songs with the band, The Weight, The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down. I mean, if you don't, I'm sure everyone here knows the band and knows their albums. They are fantastic albums, standing, that kind of, and kind of leading the way away from that kind of, massive kind of instrumental thing to much more song-based integrated band things that Eric Clapton particularly took quite a lot from, didn't he, for his early 70s output. Band integration was really important to that was the band leading the way. So R.I.P. Robbie Robertson, the great Robbie Robertson.
Yeah, two great things that came out of obviously Robbie's career. The Last Waltz. Fantastic film, folks. If you haven't seen that, you need to go and see that. I actually recommend watching the film over and above the soundtrack. I think the soundtrack is just mediocre compared to what the film offers. And what's really, really interesting too, guys, and this is a bit of a gripe to social media, to the social media giants out there, you fucking pack of wankers. So they had Robbie Robertson's biography film that came out a couple of years ago. It was on Netflix and it was on Amazon for free. Guess what? You can't watch them now.
Really?
Hmm.
Why not? That's interesting.
because they want you to go and pay
Oh, I want you to pay. Oh, okay.
the stream,
No.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
or within 24 hours of Robbie passing.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Crazy. Unbelievable.
Sadly, all too believable in my books, but anyway. So that was it. Yeah. So Robbie Robertson. We ought to do some band albums. Certainly, the first two are amazing. Music from Big Pink and the band.
On another note, I've got a happy birthday.
Ray.
Happy birthday, Mark Knopfler from Dire Straits. I think he turned, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was 74.
Wow.
So happy birthday, Mark Knopfler. Yeah. We should do a Dire Straits album at some point.
We've done a couple.
Yeah, we should do
Done one with Simon Hosford. We did
No.
Making Movies. We did.
No.
What did we
no,
do
it
with
was
Jim?
with
Was it with Jim?
no
Jim.
Andy.
Andy. Was with Andy.
Andy.
Sorry, Andy.
Andy.
The old brain is not what it should be, you know.
Yeah. I know that we've definitely done one. It was Making Movies, wasn't it?
Mm.
Yes, that's right. Making Movies. It was, wasn't it? I can remember the album Just. Yeah.
Oh, look, there's a, even Brothers in Arms. It's such a classic album. It's pretty amazing. So we should do in the future some Dire Straits stuff as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
On the list.
Yeah. What one thing though that comes to my mind though, Simon and Brad, about Robbie Robertson too, and I think it was on the documentary. He may have written it down somewhere, but Clapton said, "Oh, let's go and jam. He was eager to go and hang out with these guys, and they turned around and said, "No, we don't jam.
Yeah.
We go and write songs."
Unbelievable.
Of course, he appeared on The Last Waltz, didn't he, Eric? Doing Farther On Up the Road, I think.
Caught his guitar in time, didn't he, before that Stratocaster hit the floor? I wonder if they'll come out with an unedited version with them all coming out with like white stuff on their noses, like the rock professor, Brad.
Probably.
I'm fine. I've been in rehab. It's all fine.
Oh my goodness.
That was what I was off for a week for, actually.
He was in rehab for a week.
Yeah, definitely. Only a week. Only took a week.
Simon, do you want to do a shout out and we'll start the show?
Yeah.
What do you reckon?
Let's do a shout out to the team in the. So good morning to Ellen. Morning, Ellen. Derek Clapton. Morning, Derek. Morning, Greg Roberts Tune. Finally arrived, Greg. We've got Holly. Good morning, Holly. Hope your sinus infection is clearing up. That's horrible. Nobody wants one of those. Jazz Thunder 50. Jim. Good morning, Jim. Hope you're well up there north of the border. Gretch Zeppelin. Morning, Gretch. Maybe else, man. Some bloke called Simon Williams. Holly, Ellen M Guitar Corner. Good morning. Hope you're well. Ryan Hall. Good morning, Ryan.
G'day, Ryan.
That's very cool. I don't know if you've not a name I recognise particularly, Ryan. So welcome. Glad you're able to join us. Johnny Heartbreaker as well. Morning, Johnny. Hope you're well. I think that's everybody. Hope I didn't miss anybody. So morning all. Give me a shout out in the chat if I missed you, and I will shout you out as we go.
Fantastic.
Great to see you all. Thanks for joining. Fantastic.
Okay, guys, so we're going to do, obviously, the orchestra nights. So just bear with me. I've just got a little bit of an intro, and we're going to share some thoughts a little bit about the orchestration. So on the original 24 Nights DVD, or VHS, if you're an old fart like me, you would have got it on VHS. There were 3 tracks, Brad and Simon, from the orchestra nights, Bell Bottom Blues, Hard Times, and Edge of Darkness. So now on this one here, we get a lot more, don't we, on the definitive release, which is an interesting thing. I just want to share with Brad, the rock professor, and obviously everybody here in the chat about this idea of orchestration and rock and roll. Very much an English thing. The English guys were the first guys to bring in orchestration. We saw that with the Beatles very early on, didn't we, Simon, with Revolver and Rubber Soul? You know, they were bringing in orchestration. We saw that with a lot of English guys. This love of bringing orchestra into rock and roll. Wasn't that long after the Beatles first experimented with it, Brad, that we got Sgt. Pepper's, one of the greatest rock and roll albums that incorporates orchestra. And then obviously the floodgates were open, Simon, where, you know, everybody was bringing in orchestration. But I'm gonna say that the English guys probably got it down well first. You had Phil Spector, who brought it in from that wall of sound perspective, didn't you? You know, from the American side of things, and obviously the great guy from the Beach Boys, Brian Wilson, as well, being consumed by bringing this type of music into rock and roll. It works when it works well, Brad. There's been a lot of examples through the case and history of rock and roll where it hasn't worked well. Metallica and the orchestra nights comes to mind, and I'm sure you might probably have some other experiences or examples in your own thoughts too, Simon, about it not working well. But one of the great things about this package here is that it does some interesting things. That obviously we're going to talk about. But yeah, I like the fact that these English guys, Simon, saw the compatibility between orchestra and rock and roll very early on.
I think it's part of that progressive rock thing that comes out of the late '60s. You know, with Yes, King Crimson. You know, Deep Purple did it in 1969 with at the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra at the Royal Albert Hall, no less. You know, and clearly people like Procol Harum did it, and famously Rick Wakeman. You know, Rick Wakeman did all sorts of things with orchestras and on ice and all sorts of stuff. You know, in a kind of in a way that he just wanted because in the words of the great Tom Petty, the future was wide open, and there was that kind of feeling that, that rock music was important, serious, and, could cross over into that classical music territory and do something interesting with that. So a lot of people did that stuff, and as you say, to varying degrees of success, I think, and that's a very different thing from the Phil Spector Wall of Sound thing, River Deep, Mountain High, or something like that. Massive kind of Wall of Sound orchestral thing to create. That's creating a sort of sonic tempo in a different way that, say, Deep Purple and the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra wanted to create something as a John Lord composition. He wrote a concerto with lyrics by Ian Gillan, and then they played it with the orchestra in the Royal Albert Hall. So I think the Royal Albert Hall has something to do with it in some ways. I think it has an acoustic sound to it that makes orchestra playing in it really fantastic experience and fantastic sound.
Yeah,
Brad.
Oh look, I love it when there's a crossover of orchestra and rock band when it's done well. And a lot of the time, it depends on the style of music for me. The Doors, for example, when they did Soft Parade, that album, Tell All the People, Touch Me, and all those songs have got orchestra in it. And that was 1969. Then when you look at sort of more 90s bands into even relevant bands that's still relevant, like, say, the Tea Party, I went and saw the Tea Party from Canada here in Australia at the Arts Centre in Melbourne here with a symphony orchestra, and the songs are written, orchestrated anyway, so they sound amazing with a symphony orchestra.
Yep.
I think when you get that crossover with some styles of music that doesn't really have a lot of orchestration, it's a lot of maybe a little bit more denser music that doesn't have room for it, then it doesn't work. I think it just depends on the music guys, really. That's just my opinion. But
Yeah,
I'm going to say a big bold call here. This is the best I've ever seen an orchestra with a rock band out of all the live performance I've ever seen with rock bands on DVD and Blu-ray and even in person. I think this is done the best way I've ever heard it.
yeah. I'll agree with you. But you know, we'll do the rankings and we'll look at the tracks individually, Brad and Simon as well. So thank you guys for adding your opinions and your thoughts on orchestration and rock and roll. As everybody's agreed, you know, it's compatible. It's been there for a long time. It's part of the history. It's whether or not it's something that you like or enjoy yourself is that's the key thing, isn't it, Simon?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, yes, and we can get into relevance and what things do. I look forward to that. That'd be good.
So Eric's just under Brad there, and he's in the orchestra, so he's watching proceedings this evening, making sure that everybody's going to be honest and upfront, sincere.
He messaged me, private messaged me earlier today.
Oh!
Said he'll be lurking in the chat. Don't worry.
Oh, you just know all these famous people. Speaking of famous people too, folks, please go and subscribe to Brad, especially his Instagram channel. The band that he plays with, the 80s tribute band, they're going crazy with putting posts on. So if you want to get some posts and pics of Brad doing interesting things,
Yeah.
go and follow him. And while you're there, you'll probably find links to the Rock Professor and me as well. So if you want to follow us.
100%.
Our thrilling, tremendous output that we do. Well, when I say that.
All right, guys, shall we kick off the rankings?
Let's do it.
We got a little bit to go through, but I promise, folks, we'll be on the ball as usual. We invite you, please, to offer your ranks and your opinions and thoughts on the tracks that we're talking about, and whether or not you agree with any of us as well. That's irrelevant if you do, but obviously, you know, it's just adding to the conversation.
Yeah, it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant, but you're wrong.
Something like that.
Well, they could be right.
They could be right, and we could be wrong. Yeah.
We're sometimes right, sometimes wrong, but always certain.
Yeah. Look, the two of us are never wrong. Look at that.
That's true. I haven't got my mug today.
Okay.
Somebody else used it. This is a blooming dishwasher.
I've got a
How
different
dare
one
they?
today.
Communal mugs. That's how
communal
germs are spread.
Because I don't know my name anymore.
Look at that. That's
Brad.
terrible. That's not even a mug, is it?
Sometimes I've got to
Brad's got
remind
his name on it.
Yeah, just so
So you can remember who you are. Who am I? Yes.
What it says? This belongs to
Brad.
Brad.
Look at that. Self-regarding. Honestly. Got my own name on a mug.
Right. You got your name on your mug, you're set for life.
Awesome. All right, guys. We'll crack on with the first track. So, obviously, this was never included on the original package. If you've been fortunate and lucky enough over the years, you would have come across it on social media, on YouTube to hear it. But if I remember rightly, guys, was this This was one of the singles that they released before the package. This was one of the. I'm sure it was.
Yes.
One of the tasters, was it?
Yeah, I think it was. And look, if you're a Clapton fan, you would be familiar with it. But Brad and Simon, I have to say that first 1 minute and 52 seconds of listening to the orchestra on this Crossroads track is pure magic. It's just fantastic. It sets the scene. That orchestration just is the epitome of the orchestra night, Brad and Simon. For me, when I hear that, I get chills. I think it's just a fantastic 2-minute musical journey before we crack into the actual song. Brad, Eric sounds incredible on this track. He's got a nice growl in his voice. We love the strat tone that he's got. And that first solo that he's got some interesting notes going on, that first solo that he doesn't normally play when he plays this solo. He's probably a semitone or a semitone up or down on certain notes on this track. It's a remarkable piece of music. Brad, I've given this 10 out of 10. I was just about going to give it a Brad score, but I think 10 out of 10 is good enough.
Wow. We're going to have some interesting ranking here, aren't we? I can tell.
Yep.
I can tell. All right.
So is that Crossroads or just the kind of overture to start?
The Crossroads, yeah.
Crossroads, that's right.
So you've confused me. Have I missed something?
No, it's fine. No, it's fine. Because I mean, no, you haven't missed something.
Okay.
Look, it's like an overture at the start of it. It almost starts like
you guys are getting. I see what you guys are doing. I'm just a simple blues
we're not
man
dividing
here.
it up. But...
Okay.
I haven't divided them up. I haven't divided them up, but in my head I've got there's that first however many 2 or 3 minutes, isn't there, where there's that kind of, the orchestra. It's almost like warming up. There's what I would describe as an overture, as a kind of the beginning before they get into the actual song.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know, Simon. I'm just a simple blues man.
Well, Jerry, I can tell you that my father was a composer, and wrote a lot of orchestral music.
I gave you the opportunity. Gave you the opportunity to lead this show. You said no.
You mean not stand at the back and throw things? Yes.
Yeah. Gave you the opportunity.
Well,
shame already.
Simon, do you want to go next then, or you want me to go?
No. I'll go last.
All right. So for me, you've got that overture that Simon's referring to, and it's something like a musical piece, and on its own entity, and then obviously Clapton comes out, and the orchestra is playing, and Clapton starts vamping over the top, and I love what he does, especially when he does the trills, those things that he does. The guitar tone is outstanding. The song kicks in with the classic Crossroads riff, and it sounds full. There's a lot going on, and there's a lot more filling out the sound than just the standard band playing by itself. So you can tell there's the holes are being filled by the orchestra. And when Clapton comes in singing, he's very strong with his vocal. This is like a signature song for Eric. I think he's sort of adopted this and made it his own. And this is a great version of it. The background vocals are fantastic. The band are just cooking. The whole band, without mentioning every single member of the band, they're tight. They've got this down. This is a well-rehearsed and a well-oiled machine behind Clapton here. And so first solo, it has space. Clapton does his first solo, has a lot of space, a lot of feel. As Andrew said, it's a little different than what he would normally do in this song as a starting solo. And then for the first 12 bars, he's kind of just phrasing and playing notes. around what's happening there. Then the second 12 bars, he gets that Strat screaming. He really goes for it. Then we hear the orchestra play a solo for 12 bars, and then Clapton comes in playing another solo and demonstrating some fantastic, like, pinky work. You see his pinky quite a bit. If you watch it. Anyway, there's a lot of pinky work going on there, which is fantastic to see. Because for me, Clapton's always been the one and the three fingers with his playing. He's a lot of that, but you see his fourth finger in there a bit, which is fantastic. There's that line vocally where he comes in and sings you can run, and the band drops out, and then the band comes back in. His vocal there sounds fantastic. It's like power. He's got a lot of power there. We've said this all the way along. His vocal at this point in his career is one of his highlights of his vocal career at this point for 24 Nights. The outro solo, it starts off, he's got that Stratocaster working hard. Clapton demonstrates in his solo more bluesy licks, some amazing vibrato. We've mentioned this a lot over these rankings, that his vibrato is, he's got a technique that a lot of people tried to emulate, but no one really does it like Clapton. And his bending technique that he's known for is something else as well. I gave this a 10 out of 10, guys, and never a skip. Simon.
Okay, so yeah, I'd agree with that. I think the first bit. I think that the what I'm calling the overture, when the orchestra start, it's a kind of lush kind of romantic vibe to it. You can tell what type of composer Michael Kamen is from that. I think it sets the tone. I think it's as you said, Brad. I think the solos are excellent. I think he sings excellently. The band are really tight, and I think that's that comes through very, very strongly. That they've clearly played this a lot, and it's well organised, and it's pretty much if you go and listen to the rock version, they're not very different, are they? In terms of the solos are a bit different, but pretty much the same sort of thing. Great version. I mean, dissension already. My question is, what does an orchestra do in a blues song called Crossroads? I mean, it's about going to the crossroads on your knees to the devil, right? Now, I'm saying that my feeling about it is that I don't think that it really suits that kind of lush romantic thing. Doesn't really suit what the song is about. I think if it was played differently, it added more drama to it, was more dramatic. I think that I would like it more. But I feel that it, in some ways, it overpowers the band. There's a kind of, you get this great kind of big, lush wall of sound, as we've talked about. It was Phil Spector's kind of, and I think particularly the second solo, Eric is kind of, gets a bit embedded in the orchestra, and clearly, if you're playing with a lot of strings inhabit the same harmonic space as the guitar, so you have a tension between the two, which may or may not be a good thing. That I think that myself, I think that in a way, as I said, go back. It's a Blues Song by Robert Johnson. Does a lush romantic orchestra bring an extra dimension to it? The answer clearly for you guys is yes. And that's fine. Not so much for me, I'm afraid. I would kind of prefer it, without the orchestra myself. That would be my preference. I'd give it 7.5 out of 10. I think. Well, I'll make a serious point here, and I've been through this a lot this week. I've been through, gone through trying to work out what I actually think about it. I would say that's what I kind of feel about an orchestra, is that, and I've been to got dragged to a lot of classical concerts when I was a kid because my dad was a composer and stuff, and so, I think that kind of, what an orchestra does, it has to kind of frame the piece of music it's playing, and it brings something to it, and you've got all those instruments and all that ability to create dramatic tension and counterpoints and counter melodies, but it's got to fit in with the song that you're doing. And I myself don't really think it does that. It just becomes a kind of lush background on which Eric plays. Well,
Awesome.
So yes, 7.5 out of 10 from me. I'm gonna get banned before the day is out. I can tell.
I can see
No,
your point, Simon. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
makes sense.
no problem. Let us know, guys, what you think in the chat too. Second song, Bell Bottom Blues, offers a contrast again to the first track that we heard, folks. It's a delicate song. It's quite a little bit different from, say, the original version on the Layla album, but it's not too dissimilar. And this is a word that I'm going to use quite a lot, dissimilar, because I think that's one of the great things about the tracks that Clapton is doing with the orchestration night or the nights or the packaging, which is, I think, quite important. Brad, the vocals, background vocals on this track are fantastic. Definitely a highlight for me. Generally, I love the song. When Clapton did it again, like I illustrated with Derek and the Dominoes, and I like the rocky version of this. This is a little bit, it's a softer approach. Giving it 8 out of 10, Brad, but it's never a skip.
Ooh, okay, that's all right. 8 out of 10 is good. But you're gonna be shocked by my score. Then. It could be worse. It could be a worse score. I'm just not saying that's going to be better. Bell Bottom Blues. I'm going to give it away straight up. This is a beautiful version of this song for me. This is one of my all-time favorite songs from Eric's career. I love the album that came off, Layla and other sorted love songs. For some reason, this song resonates with Eric for obvious reasons a lot. And the way it starts off, the guitar tone is beautiful. It's got that little bit of shimmer from the chorus going on, and the strat tone is amazing. Eric's vocal is outstanding to back up what Andrew was saying, and the band sound amazing. Phil Palmer, I've got to mention, he adds that real additional colored sort of guitar in the background there, and I love that he's put that in there and sort of replicating what's happening on the record without, what I'm saying is actually honoring the song the way that it was recorded a little bit. But
Sure.
with added orchestration, I think it really suits this song better than Crossroads, even for, say, what you were sort of talking about, Simon. Kind of agree. Maybe I'm just biased because I like the song Crossroads and I liked how it sounded. But this song lends itself a little bit more to orchestration. And this is what I was saying at the header when we'll talk about orchestra and rock bands. A lot of that orchestration in the original anyway. Like when I say orchestration, it's written to have a lot of background ambience going on in that. And this song really suits the orchestra. Eric's solo in this song is tear-jerking. It's really, truly every note is an emotion he's feeling. And I love what he's doing in this song. It's one of my favorite versions of this song. Nothing will beat the original of Layla and other sort of love songs for me.
Yes.
But this is a close second or third. I love this version of the song. I'm giving it 100 out of 10, guys. And I'm standing
Oh,
feet firmly on the street here and saying that that's what it deserves. Simon.
well, Andrew, but
Simon, your go.
yes, sorry. So yeah, I mean, I think that in some ways I agree. I think that this is better suited to having some orchestration on it. I think the beginning where the French horns play is really good. That's a lovely piece of melodic interest that's put in. I think that, as you've said, Brad, this is for me. This is a much better piece to orchestrate than that maybe Crossroads is, from my point of view. I do think that you've got to be careful with these things. Great lush kind of, clearly my famous thing is lush kind of orchestrations, big sounds and stuff. That I think you've got to be careful that it doesn't turn too syrupy and kind of and doesn't get a bit, over sentimentalized. And because, clearly we know the original from Layla is a very kind of raw song, and Eric sings it like that. And, and I think that on the original, the combination of the organ and the guitar playing together and Bobby Whitlock singing as well is a fantastic, combination of the two things. And, I think that's the definitive version. I think that the melody sometimes gets a bit lost in the orchestration. It kind of overpowers it a bit. And I'm going to say something really important in a minute, I think, about this. But I gave this an 8 out of 10. I think it's fine. I think it works better than Crossroads as a piece. I think, as I say, I think there's, that if you just fill up the space with everything, then I don't feel there's a room for one's emotional impact. It lessens the emotional impact of a song. If it's, full, and, you've got to be careful with these things. And I think that, I think this is, this works much better than Crossroads. The important thing I say is that whenever I think of it, orchestration, I completely reserve Clapton's right to do this. If somebody came to me and said, "Would you like to do an orchestra night at the Royal Albert Hall?" The answer is never going to be no, is it? In 1991. So it's part of his, his artistic journey is to try things out, do different things, and I think it's really important to say that that's what this is about. This is an experimentation with something he doesn't normally do, hasn't done before. It's again, yes, and and that's what I think is really important to say, that that whatever I think, completely justified as an artistic statement to do this kind of thing, even whatever I think about it. It's not important. So yeah, 8 out of 10 from me. I got to, I played this a lot. I have to. I don't think I necessarily go back to it very often. I think the rock and the blues ones are the ones I'm going to go back to, and not the orchestral stuff very much. So the whole might be a bit deep. But anyway, so yes, Mr. Morton.
Fantastic. Again, folks, let us know what you think. Brad reckons he's the only one on his own on this number, but I don't think I was too far behind him. I think it's I have to back up. I'm going to do a bit of a conclusion here because the first person normally does that. It's the right and responsibility of the first person to do a conclusion, should they choose to. But Brad and the Rock Professor are right. It does lend itself to orchestration much easier. Lay Down Sally, Brad and Simon. Look, any song like a Lay Down Sally song has to have that familiar riff, doesn't it? Because that's the song. Lay Down Sally is the riff. It's clear. And obviously, thankfully, this song continues that riff. There's a couple of things, though, that I want to point out about this track that I find remarkable. It's that pulsing bass. It pops on this track. I don't think I've heard it before on some of the other tracks that I've heard in the past that have been probably copied 50 times and put on YouTube. But Brad, also there's a nice snare skip too that's going on in this track, which is really, really good to hear. The orchestra, it's just doing something in the background for me, and that's fine. I'm going to pinch the word that the Rock Professor is talking about, a lush wash over the song. I don't see it as being a hindrance. It's still maintaining my attention, which is really, really important, folks. Brad, I'm giving this a 9 out of 10. Love the version of the song.
Yeah, it's a great version of the song, and for me, it's got that. This song has naturally got a laid-back feel, and Steve Ferrone, he's a master at replicating the right vibe for the song, and
Yep.
I love how he plays with the brushes and sets the feel. I'm going to say great vocal from Eric on this one. He's really got that gruff thing going on, like the original version of this song. Like it sounds like it's straight off the original album. And with the orchestration, it kind of adds color to the song, but it's not a song that suits orchestration either. If I can say that.
Correct.
Phil Palmer plays a great little Mark Knopfler styled solo. Actually, he's using his on his right hand finger picking like Mark Knopfler. He's using his rather than a guitar pick, and it's a really nice touch. I like that, and I've got to give credit to the girls that are singing background vocals. They sound phenomenal, and the outro section, especially where they're singing, is great. I've given this an 8 out of 10. It's never a skip though. I love the song, but this one just didn't, like Bell Bottom Blues for me, didn't do the same thing.
Cool.
Simon.
So yeah, I think I'd agree with all of that. I think that the one thing I wrote down slightly facetiously, I agree with you. I think that that on this kind of cool kind of groove piece, which is what Lay Down Sally is, it's got that groove, isn't it? And kind of, it's not a great standout solo, and the solos are quite laid back and in the mix and things. That's how this song works. It works as a groove piece, as you say. I mean, I think Eric's playing and singing on all of this stuff is exemplary. He's really, his singing voice is fantastic on all this stuff. We've said it a lot before, so I'll just say that up front. That I think never sang better, and his chops are right up there. As I say, what I wrote down was strings don't swing. I think I like the alliteration a bit more than anything else. But I did kind of feel that it has got that kind of groove and that swing to it, and I'm not sure that the strings actually enhance that. I'm not sure the strings are a great swing instrument. I think horns definitely, horns and saxophones and something for sure. But I'm not sure that I felt that strings really enhanced the swing and the groove of the piece as a piece of music. I gave it 7.5 out of 10. I don't think the orchestra does a huge amount in it, and in the background mainly, and it's down to the bands, and they do a great job of laying down the groove. So yeah, 7.5 out of 10 for me, but not a skip.
Yeah, I agree, Simon. Yeah, and I think that's why the bass and the percussion are easily audible on this, because that's basically what the song is. So yeah, we're on the money. What's Brad saying here? I'm glad someone agrees with me. Oh, here we go, the victim, Brad. Eh? All right. Okay. All right. You're gonna play that card today. Holy Mother.
I certainly am.
Yeah, good on you, bro. Look, Holy Mother, we've discussed this a few times, folks, on the channel. It was on August, and the other version of it as well. We know, again, we're going to repeat probably a little bit more about what we've said before about the background of the song. It's an important song to Clapton, isn't it? It's a song that when he was in the depths of hopelessness, that the song talks about hope, and it's a great thing. It's a great song. He sings it powerfully on this track. Clearly, it's an important song to Clapton back around this time. He was doing it quite a lot. Brad, I love the reverb on Clapton's vocals on this track. It adds to it. It's not often that Clapton does sing with reverb, but it's a nice touch. Again, I don't know what the orchestra's doing. It's just doing their stuff behind the background. It's not getting in the way. It's a song, again. We've picked out a couple of songs already that's suited for orchestration. I think the song fits into that category quite well. I've given this 9.5 out of 10. I wanted to give it a 10 out of 10, but Brad, I'm going to give it a 9.5.
That's okay. That's a great score. I agree with you, Andrew. This one does lean itself a little bit more to orchestration. That intro is just really, really lush and beautiful. I've got to say that the guitar tone is wonderful. Very rare you see Clapton use a capo on his guitar. So
Yep.
that's one point I wanted to make. It's a wonderful vocal from Eric Clapton. As we know, mentioned many times now, his vocal at this time of his life is just great. When the band kicks in with the orchestra, it sounds wonderful. They're just playing enough there to not really, in my opinion, clutter too much the song and really just give it a little bit more of a angelic feel. The solo is wonderful from Eric. He leaves a lot of space between the phrasing, like he's talking and telling the story, like as if
Correct.
He's great at that, and that's his blues background coming through there, and that's you listen to BB King and you listen to Freddie King, you listen to these guys. They played guitar solos like they were talking, and Eric's brought that on, being Freddie King and BB King and all those guys were big influences on him, and it's coming through in his playing. The outro of the song is fantastic, it's beautiful. I gave the song 9 out of 10, guys. I never skip. Simon.
Yeah,
so
I think that stick with that. I think that the first half where the 9-piece plays, I think is great, and I think clearly, Andrew, as you said, this is a very important song to Eric, and he does it a lot, and he sings it fantastically, and I think the 9-piece fill it out beautifully as a thing. I think that for me, when the orchestra comes in, there's a kind of the danger with these songs. And I think that with that kind of very lush orchestration, I know I'm using the word lush orchestration. The word of the week is lush. I think that when it can turn things a bit syrupy and take away the edge of the song and the kind of the emotion for it and turn it into a bit of a syrupy thing. So for me, although I think this is a good candidate for some orchestration and things, I think that again, having the strings under it and that very lush orchestration, I think takes away from the emotional impact of the song. And, I don't think, for instance, that the backing singers who are doing a fantastic, gospel-y type of thing, and I think they do a fantastic job, the backing singers, that to be kind of almost slightly overwhelmed by the orchestra is doing them a disservice a bit. I don't know if that's a mixing thing or what it is, but that's kind of morning, John said D351. Hope you're well.
Yeah,
walking the plank, very good. So I think that I would prefer a version without the orchestra on it by a distance. And as I say, towards the end, the strings get, for me, a bit overpowering, and and it's. I wrote down rather cheekily, "I'm drowning in strings," as a thing. But so I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. I think I'd come back to this. I think it has some merit, and I think it's one of the songs where an orchestration. As I say, I'm just not convinced that what they actually did fits the song in the best way possible, but that's just me. Andrew,
I got a theory about that, Simon, that I'll share with you on the conclusion. I think.
Okay, cool, excellent.
That may or may not be. Who gives a shit about conclusions anyway? But anyway, on to the next track. Just want to echo what the Rock Professor said. John ZD351, good to see you, brother. Always nice for you to pop in, even if it's for a second. Big part of the channel, big part of what we do here. Thank you, bro. Look, the Rock Professor stole a point from my notes when he spoke about orchestration and blues. What's the connection? So I've got a note here: orchestration and reggae. What's the connection? I shot the sheriff. It's when it first came out, Brad and Simon, we've ranked this. It was a groundbreaking thing that Clapton did, didn't he? What was the album that it came out? 461 Ocean Boulevard.
461 Ocean Boulevard. Yeah.
Yes, I think it's on that one.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is on 461 Ocean Boulevard. Yeah.
And how we, ground broke that song and reggae, and kind of did a job by bringing that into the mainstream. One of the great artists, guitarists, musicians to do that, and give a platform. I'm not saying the only artist to give reggae or Bob Marley a platform, but certainly one of the most important ones to do it with that song. Look, I've got to be honest with you folks. There's been some great versions of the song over the years, and some terrible, horrible versions that Clapton has done. This is not my favourite version at all, Brad. The horns add something though, Simon. I don't know. They add something. But I don't know what that something is. Brad, it's a 5 out of 10 for me, and it could be sometimes a skip.
Oh, controversial.
Sorry, bro.
So
I'm just having a moment of silence.
You're praying, yes.
Listen,
Release.
I've got something that I want to talk about in the conclusion of this in relation to an orchestra playing with Eric Clapton. We'll talk about that at the end because I don't want to wreck the rankings. But
No problem. Hey, Crappy.
For me, I Shot the Sheriff. The song starts off with keyboards and orchestration playing together. Eric's sort of vamping over the top. You can really see Eric enjoys playing this song. I do agree with you, Andrew, that there's been some horrible versions that he's done live of this song. I may upset some Bob Marley fans here, though, but I think Eric's version on 461 Ocean Boulevard is better than Bob Marley's version. I love it. It's great.
Correct.
And it's very hard to go past that version for me, if that makes sense, when I come to hearing it live. Now, I'm taking into account that Clapton wanted to embrace the 24 nights, the rock nights, the blues nights, and orchestration, and have a three-dimensional thing for his fans. So I like the vocal on this. I think he comes in very strong. He croons his way through the verses. The pre-choruses sound massive. They sound really big. Once the song takes off, in the I Shot the Sheriff parts, the tempo lifts, and it kind of threw me a bit for some reason at first. First listen through on this version, when the tempo changes, I'm like, oh, and I had to get back with the song a little bit. So it lost me for a little bit there.
Okay.
Yeah, but the band and the orchestra are playing well together. I'll put that here. Great background vocals, and I've noticed in the orchestra parts especially, the BVs are a high point, a standout in every song. The band sounds fantastic. The breakdown in the middle is really good. You can hear Eric playing a solo, very delicate stylings, beautiful neck tone on the strat, on the neck pickup. I love how the solo builds up dynamically, and Eric builds his solo up to suit that. It's an okay version of the song for me. I've heard a lot worse from Eric in the past. I gave it an 8.5 out of 10 and never a skip. I'm not going to give it a measly 5 like Andrew there. That's just rude. That is. Simon, you're
we haven't finished yet, bro.
That was right. Well, interestingly, Andrew, I wrote down the same thing as you. I wrote down orchestra and reggae. Really? and then you start sitting there going, oh, so is there an orchestral precedent for this in reggae? And I couldn't think of any. I think that I agree with you completely. I think that the trombones and the horns, that works because it's got that kind of ska reggae thing that has a tradition of those instruments.
Yep.
I don't think the strings do in the same way, and I think that what happens with the orchestration? I think the key thing about reggae, if you're playing it, is the space, isn't it? The key thing about reggae is the space, bass and the drums and the guitar, leaving that space, and that's what reggae is about more than anything else. And I think if you fill it up with strings, it becomes not reggae. It takes it away from that. So I think you're right, Brad. I think Eric solos well. He sings fantastically. I think that the band, I think, do a great job. And it's a very similar arrangement to the rock version, but just with the orchestra added. I don't think they've changed it very much at all. I gave it a 6 out of 10, and I would probably skip it sometimes. I think it's for me. This version is too long, and it kind of could do with being a bit shortened a bit as well. So
All right. Well,
so yeah.
well,
Yes,
good to
thank
see.
you.
Good to see my fives not alone in isolation, Brad.
No.
I'm a little bit shell shocked actually, and I'm almost thinking a double timeout is in order here.
Banhammer.
We'll see what happens at the end of the show, mate. You might be doing the next couple of shows by yourself. Yeah. All right. Again, folks. Look, we're having a bit of fun, obviously, but we've been serious. We're Clapton fans here. You know the archaeology that we do here on this channel. Clapton is my main man. But again, we're just being honest as fans, sharing our own opinions. That's it. If you're watching on a replay and you disagree and you think that I Shot Sheriff is a Brad score, let us know. Tell us. It's fine. Everyone's allowed to say what they want here on this channel, within reason, of course. Hard times, Brad.
Yes.
I think I mentioned this to you guys before when it came out on Journeyman. It wasn't my favourite song for a long time because I wanted to listen to the Rockers, but it was certainly a song over the years that I grew to love and appreciate when you consider, it goes back to one of the greatest composers, writers ever in music. And I think Clapton does a very, very good job with the vocals on this track, Brad. You can tell that the band, the musicians, are having fun on this. I love that nasal ring that Clapton gets on this track. And you can see he's trying to do something just a little bit different with his vocals. And I like that, Brad. I think, we don't talk about that a lot. And if I think that may be one of the discernible things that we've got with this repackaging, remastering, remixing, I think we can probably pick up these subtle differences in Clapton's voice a little bit clearer for us. I think so. Look, I love the song, Brad. I think the orchestra certainly adds to that atmosphericness, that a song like this can do. I'm going to put the Rock Professor back in here. I promise you, folks, he wasn't, what's the word? Sent to the naughty room.
That's right. My internet was playing up a bit. You were getting all robotic, so I thought I'd skip out and come back in again, see if the connection.
Yeah, that's right. Always pull out and stick it back in, mate. You never pull it out, drop it out, I should say. What am I talking about? Family
Not
show.
that now. Focus.
Brad, look, I love this version. This is never a skip though. The last one probably. Yeah. Okay. This is not a skip, Brad. 8 out of 10.
We're getting back on track a little bit, guys. Let's let's remember that we're Clapton fans, and he wanted to do an orchestra night, so we've got to respect that. Now, hard times for me. Eric shines vocally on this song. I've put this is not an easy song to sing. Has a bit of soul in it. Ray Charles has a soulful voice, and I think Eric truly gives it a heartfelt, soulful vocal here. Great piano solo from Greg. Then Clapton comes in playing some sassy bluesy lines over the top with the piano. When Eric comes back in singing after the solos, this is where he's really giving it everything he's got vocally. It sounds incredible. I enjoyed the song on Journeyman. I really love hearing Eric sing this way, and putting the guitarist thing aside. I love Eric's vocal in this, and for that reason alone, I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10 and never a skip. It's a sensational vocal. Simon.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Great singing. I think this is a great version of it as well. I think he, I think because the orchestra is used sparingly, and I think actually that this is one of those songs where just that orchestra used sparingly actually enhances it. I think it's that kind of song where, and Ray Charles has had strings and had orchestra on his songs, so there's a bit of a precedent for it in those, in that context. So I think clearly Eric loves this song and he sings it fantastically. I agree with you. The barrel house piano is great, and the vibe is brilliant. Good piano solo, good guitar solo. And as I say, the orchestration is quite subdued under the singing. So, and I think that it brings it up. I give it an 8 out of 10 and not a skip, for sure.
Awesome.
Good.
Thanks for the comment, Derek. I agree. Yeah, thank you. Can't Find My Way Home. Again, folks, we've had the pleasure on this channel to rank Blind Faith's only album. I know that the Rock Professor and Brad and I have spoken fondly. I think we've spoken about this song a couple of times on a lot of shows. It's a beautiful song. I love a lot of the versions of Can't Find My Way Home when he had Yvonne singing it with him in the 70s, Simon. She was doing the vocals. And then obviously with Nathan East coming in, Brad offering his contribution to this track, it's just phenomenal, isn't it? With the way that he sings, he's so beautiful. The guitars, the bass, the strings in that intro. This song certainly loans itself to being orchestrated, and it just does it really, really well in the intro for me. His upright bass plays and sounds at home with everything that's happening on this song. For me, that upright bass, especially later on as the song builds up, it just has its own place. And then obviously Nathan with his vocal, it's a phenomenal performance by the man. It's magic. It's a magic track. It's 10 out of 10, Brad. Never a skip.
That's great. I'm glad. We're back on track with the rankings. Thank you so much. Okay, so Can't Find My Way Home, I'll put here. That intro is really beautiful. It's emotive. The symphony, they're adding the dynamic to this song. Phil Palmer plays some wonderful acoustic lead acoustic guitar in this. Sorry for fumbling there. I had to reread my notes. They're a bit messy. The wonderful upright fretless bass that Nathan is playing, it sounds sensational. And well done, Nathan. He's singing amazingly well. Ray Cooper on percussion, that chimes that he does and everything, it just sort of adds the color there that's going on. Steve Ferrone on the drums is real dynamic on this one. Nice bass solo from Nathan I've put there, and background vocals sound incredible on this song. And like I said before, a lot of the background vocals in these symphony nights are the highlight for me. So I've given this a solid 9 out of 10 and never a skip. Simon.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so I think this is one of the songs where the orchestration is adds something to it for sure. It starts off with that dramatic start with the strings add a tension to it that is I think enhances it for sure. I think it's that it is still very much the arrangement from the rock night. It's still with the two acoustic guitars playing. It's beautiful, and I think the strings work well as a counterpoint to the melody when they play. That's really good as well. I like that. I do still think there's slightly the orchestra slightly overwhelms the chorus a bit. singing. Sort of. And I did try this out on different stereo. I tried it on my stereo, in the car, on headphones. You know, I did go around I did listen to different things to make sure I wasn't, you know, my thinking is, you know, was correct. And that's what I feel. And as I say, I'm a person who likes a bit of space and things. You know, I love those early, you know, late 60s, early 70s because of the space. You know, Steve Winwood, the Blind Faith, has a space in it. I think the bass solo is fantastic as well, over the strings. I think that really works as well. And again, the organ playing over the strings too. I think they have it two different harmonic spaces, and therefore those things work. Yeah, because they complement each other. I get them an 8 out of 10, but never a skip. Not a skip.
Beautiful.
Andrew.
Thank you, Simon. Derek prefers this version to the rock night version. Yeah. I could see how you could do that. Nathan East and that fretless bass that Brad has discussed is just a fantastic contribution to this song. Wonderful. Edge of Darkness. Okay, folks, we might be get myself into a little bit of trouble here. If it wasn't for Clapton, I wouldn't be aware of this piece. I wouldn't have listened to this piece. I'm familiar with the TV program that it was associated with because it was cutting edge here on New Zealand TV as far as, you know, a British kind of copy kind of program goes, Simon, because it was graphic. But if you go and have a look at that now, it's nothing compared to the, you know, to what you get on TV now. I think for most of the Clapton fans like us, when we got this, Brad and Simon, that's probably when we became aware of Michael Kamen as an entity, as an individual on this track. If I can join some dots together, Simon, I think it was this track that made this person, Michael Kamen, aware. I became aware of. I don't know anything about orchestra music, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to give this just a neutral score because it sounds good. It could be a James Bond theme track, Simon, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I'm giving this a 6 out of 10, Brad. Never a skip, though.
I like how diverse these things are tonight. It's controversial. It's setting the
good.
Setting a new bar for this channel and the ranking show. It's great. We're not all agreeing. This is you know, we're butting heads a little bit. Fantastic. I love it. Edge of Darkness. I'm going to bring a little bit of credibility back to the channel here. Sorry, Andrew. I mean that in the nicest way possible. Edge of Darkness. I really enjoy this instrumental. I agree. I would not have known about Michael Kamen without this song in particular. And obviously, I'm not a big symphony orchestra guy. I understand it. I know a little bit. I've seen some orchestras play live. I'm a rock guy. I'm a blues rock guy. That's my thing. But I'm gonna say it like this. This is stretching Eric as a musician, in my opinion. He's stretching himself, and it's fantastic to hear this symphony orchestra play this song live. The main guitar melody is beautiful. There's a lot of tension in the chord changes. The guitar tone is incredible. When the solo kicks in with the band, sounds incredible. The bass and drums are really tight. Eric's lead guitar playing on this is next level for me. It's the highlight for the song is the solos, without a doubt. You get to see Eric playing with that effortless vibrato that he has and he's well known for. His string bending. It's insane to watch, on the Blu-ray, but just listening to it on the CD, it's the same thing. I'm listening to it in the car, going, "How does this guy do this so effortlessly?" It's, us mere mortals, we're trying so hard to do it as effortlessly as Eric Clapton. The more I listen to this, the more I love it. I've given it a 9 out of 10 and never a skip, gentlemen. And
I'll go and listen to it again.
My feet are planted in the concrete, and I'm not shifting it. 9 out of 10.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, clearly, I remember the show Edge of Darkness, and I think it was quite, 6 55-minute, episodes. It was quite something in '85. It was quite groundbreaking, a long form kind of thing, and I think that certainly a mixture of a thriller and a political thriller and a detective story was it's been copied a lot in more recent times for sure. But yeah, it was pretty groundbreaking piece of television then, and I think that I was talking to somebody about this yesterday, that for me, when you get a theme tune to a TV thing, it's basically about 2 minutes worth, isn't it? You've got 2 minutes to set the scene, give you some idea from the music about what it's about, where you're going to go with it. And I think as a 2 minute piece, it works fine. As a 6 minute piece, I'm much less convinced by it. I think that it's to me, and I don't think this is true, by the way, but it seems to me that Eric sort of just noodling over it. I feel like it's something that you and I would sit down and play in our front rooms. We get a backing track and we kind of play. And I think that when it starts to go into 4, 5, 6 minutes, that it loses its focus and it loses the tension in it, and it becomes a kind of noodling piece. And I think that Eric is clearly having to play within a framework of what the orchestration is doing, and I think that's fine. But it's not my favorite Eric playing. I think I'm with you, Brad. I'm a blues rock guy. I can listen to Eric jamming on a blues rock thing all day. No problems at all. More so than I think this. As I say, and I think that if you took as a 2 minute piece of bookends, a drama like that, it works fine, works well. It's good, I give it an 8 out of 10 if it was 2 minutes. But for me, it doesn't sustain it into a 6 and a quarter minute piece. So I give it a 5 out of 10, and I would skip it sometimes. I'd have to be in the mood for it. It's not.
Hey, you know what?
Oh, really? What?
I'm going to change things around here. I'm timing myself out.
Bye-bye.
You can't do that. You're not allowed to time yourself out. You could time us out, Brad. Bad behaviour. Yes. Oh, he's still there.
He's gone now.
Anyway, right. Yes, while he's not here, let's get back to business. Oh, he's back.
No, look, that's a good point, though, about the edit that Eric is saying in the chat. Look, I agree. And just remember, folks, we're having a bit of fun here, and we're having diversity in scores, which is always a great show. But yeah, again, let us know if you're watching on a replay whether or not you think we're right or wrong at your scores. Okay, we're wrong. Okay, but I'll definitely go back and check this track out. Next track, folks, is old. Sorry,
Andrew. Definitely, the beauty of these things is how these things affect you. And Eric's, stepping out of his comfort zone, doing different things, and how these things affect you. Derek really likes it and has given it a 10. And that's perfect, completely valid.
Sure.
Because that's how he reacts to it, and I think that's fantastic. Anyway, sorry, Andrew.
Yeah. No problem. Thanks for reiterating that, because again, I got to agree with Greg Roberts' Tunes comment here. Adele's Skyfall. It's fantastic. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. But yeah, no yin without yang, gentlemen from Ryan. Well, you're right. So, but yeah,
Yes,
you know,
that's
we're
true.
we're having fun, but we're being serious, obviously, because Clapton. Clapton's a big deal for a lot of us here on the channel. Old love. Look, guys, I've never hidden the fact with you that I love this song when it came out, Brad, on Journeyman. You know, I just think it's fantastic. One of the standout tracks on Journeyman. Jim, I think a couple of weeks ago, made the comment that this was one of the tracks that was made to go out and be played live, you know, with a rock band, with that rock. And Jeepers, Clapton has done some really, really great versions with that. The good thing with the orchestration night, though, Simon, is that it's not too dissimilar from the non-orchestration version, which is great. I like the fact too that the strings come into the song, and I'm hearing some, for lack of a better word, Brad, drama. I'm hearing something. That's that the rock professor just mentioned before, having an effect. So I'm picking that up on the song. The vibrato, Brad, that Clapton has on that solo is incredible. And that vibrato alone on that solo is worth 2 points. It's just a fantastic piece. And again, I'm going to make this connection, folks. If this is down to Climby and his remixing, well, fantastic. Because it's these little nuggets, these little pieces that we hear that we think, my gosh, have I heard that before? I don't think so, Brad. I'll be interested to hear what you guys have to say about that solo. And because of that, you know, originally I was going to give this 8 out of 10, but I'm giving this, not because I'm biased and I love this song, but I think just that guitar solo and what he's doing just adds that extra 2 points. So he's, by Clapton's own merit, 10 out of 10, Brad.
I agree. Well done. Old love. Sorry. No mistake. This is a favorite of mine as well, Andrew. I love this song. I'm biased towards the song. I can't help it.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful intro. The symphony orchestra really add an eerie-like feel to this song. I'm going to mention that. Eric's vocal, outstanding. Eric's singing, he's got a real connection to this song, and that's extremely strong, the connection to this song for him. And the way he sings it, it's always a wonderful experience to hear him singing this. The way the solo kicks in and that tone from the Stratocaster, it's screaming. Some beautiful playing from Eric. You mentioned the vibrato and the string bending, the vibrato, Andrew. It's next level. The solo is epic. That's the best way to put it. There's an outstanding keyboard solo from Greg Fillinganes. Then Eric comes in with another solo. It's extremely dynamic. It drops in volume and then lifts with dynamics with the band as they're playing in the orchestra. 10 out of 10 for me, never a skip. I could go on for a long time about this one, but it's fantastic, guys.
Thank you. I hope I'm still your mate after that now.
Yes, don't worry. We're always going to be mates. We may have a dolly up in the pub over a few beers about some of the stuff. Right. It's always the next day.
Dust up, I think, is the Clapton phrase, isn't it?
The next day you're mates again. It's all good. Don't worry.
Yeah. So I think that I think I'd agree with you on quite a lot of things. I think that I think that the strings do add something to this. They add some dramatic quality to it in a way that possibly some other things, and I think that's good. I think I like the horns as well. I think they add some drama to it too, and and add a different texture to the song. I think Eric sings it fantastic. I think for me the vocals are a bit back in the mix, and I think that that having to fit an orchestra into a mix is tricky in terms of. Good morning, KXM Rock. That for me, there's that's a difficult. I agree with you about the solos, both of them. They're fantastic solos, and I think very much it's just very much like the rock version, but with the with the orchestra attached. I don't think there's not for me. There's not. I did listen to them. There's not a huge difference between the two things in the arrangement stuff, and I think that's good. As you said, it's one of his Eric's favourites. I think that the piano solos okay, a bit cocktail lounge for me. Sort of quite have that blues thing that I like, but yeah, I think that builds up. I would say that I think that it's probably for me a bit long. I think that 9.5 minutes is a bit long for me, but I give it a 7 out of 10, and I wouldn't skip it.
Ooh, okay. Thank you, Rock Professor, for being honest and maintaining your integrity, because that's what it's about.
Yeah.
Well, it's an opinion at the end of the day.
Yeah,
and everyone's got one. Even
great.
Even the ill-informed and the people with wrong opinions, eh, Brad? Look, guys, I've got to tell you something.
Right.
In 1977, Eric Clapton came out with a masterpiece of an album called Slow Hand, and we've had the pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to talk about that and rank that album on the channel. And Brad, put your hand up, and at the 122 mark, there'll be a link there to that show. It's one of the great shows that we did. I think we did that. Also, that was a shout out to Warren, that album. We did that for Warren because he was going through some chemotherapy. And so I'm just going to take a little bit of an opportunity to do a shout out to Warren. We haven't heard anything from you, Warren. So if you do watch the channel, or if anybody is watching the channel that's in touch with Warren, we'd love to hear how you are. But we've got that. Got that. Yeah, here they are.
I've still got your guitar, Warren. There it is.
Whenever you're ready to pick it up. Dear.
We were fortunate enough to do that as a request for Warren, who was actually in hospital, and watched that show. So we got some nice messages, the Rock Professor, Brad and I, from him personally about that, and sort of just reinforced between the three of us that even when you're hanging out with a guy from the UK, a guy from Aussie, and a guy from the UK, and you guys in the chat, when you're having a bit of fun, sometimes that bit of fun can bring a bit of cheer to people's lives. And, that's got to make it worthwhile. Anyway, sorry for allowing me to sort of elaborate a little bit more. The second track on that wonderful album is Wonderful Tonight. And it's just a remarkable song that Clapton has done on that album. He's done some really, really great versions in the late 70s, Brad, in the early 80s. That album that he did, that double album, Simon, that he did, that was recorded in Japan, where he's live at the Budokan or whatever, that one. He's got a wonderful version of it.
Yep.
I've never liked this version of Wonderful Tonight on the 24 Nights era. It bores the hell out of me. I can't find anything that I like about this song. I skip it all the time. It's a 5 out of 10. I can't offer anything positive about this song, Brad. I'm just giving it a 5 out of 10 because Eric wrote it.
Ooh, my goodness. My goodness. All right. I'm just going to continue.
Please do.
Yes. Take a breath, Brad. Take a deep breath.
Okay. Wonderful Tonight. Starts off very mellow intro. Eric's vocal sounds very delicate. You're singing very soft. It's a very laid-back version of the song. The original is hard to beat because it has something captured quite magic on that recording. But keeping in mind this is an orchestra night, and Eric does, want to cross over the orchestra with his band. So I think he's kept, he's kept it in theme for an orchestra. I think it's a delicate version of the song. There's some beautiful background vocals. His vocal in this has got a lot of texture and timbre to his voice. It's a really emotive version of the song. The symphony orchestra behind this add a very, very nice or dynamic to it. The guitar solo sounds beautiful. That vibrato, again, it's a highlight for me, the way he plays and the way he bends. The guitar, the wonderful vocals from Katie as well. I mean, like, he's our guitar hero, and there's some great guitar playing, and I encourage Andrew, and I'm not sure about Simon yet, to go back and listen to the guitar playing and try and rank it or in your own mind as per the theme of the night. And they're trying to bring and two worlds colliding, orchestra and rock music, I guess. They're trying to do something quite unique, which is I think they've done a pretty good version, all things considered. I gave it an 8 out of 10 and never a skip. Simon.
So yes, okay. So I think that I think I figure out why. For me, I'm with Andrew on this. It doesn't really work, and I think that it has an overture kind of intro where it's got some nice oboe playing stuff, and I think this has the capacity for the orchestra to work well with it. It's the type of song where an orchestra would work well on it. I think the problem you have is that it's quite a sentimental song, soft song to start with. And if you then layer over a kind of very lush kind of orchestration onto it, for me, it steps over into a kind of quite sort of syrupy, sort of sweet thing. And I think what I wrote down that I think it's the grit that makes the pearl. Without the grit, there is no pearl. And I think that this has there's no grit to it, in a sense, and I think any song like this needs to have a bit of something that gives it a bit of not a bit of but a bit of something, a bit of in it that makes you connect with it. And I feel that it kind of descends into a bit of a syrupy, sentimental thing because it has no grit in it. And so for that reason, I gave it a 5 out of 10. And I'm like Andrew, I would skip it as well. I don't, for me, it's too long again. And yes, sort of descend to a different thing.
Yeah. You and me might be looking for some other channels.
New jobs in a minute. We're starting a new channel next week.
You two are in my bad
books. Oh dear. Oh no. It's gonna get worse.
I'm going to change the subject and do a shout out to Arvin. Hey Arvin, good to see you, brother.
Good morning, Arvin. Yes.
Did you get that Epiphone SG, Arvin, that we were talking about? Sorry, Brad. Sorry. Well, I don't want to put you in pain much longer. We'll kick on with
Back
White
on
Room,
track,
shall
please,
we?
Mr. Wilson.
So the rock professor mentioned a bit of grit and a bit of spit. Well, we certainly get it on the next track, don't we? It's always been an interesting, this track, hasn't it? It's always been an interesting reinterpretation of a classic rock song, Brad. White Room, Cream, busting all the barriers in the 68 when this track came out. And this is a wonderful presentation of that song to people in that early 1990s period. And I think we got to remember that too, you know, that Clapton was picking a lot of these like songs that would have been considered old hat back then. You know, we've spoken about this before. You know, 10 years is a long time in the history of rock and roll. So I like the fact that Eric was doing that with a couple of these Cream songs, paying that homage that he needs to do to that groundbreaking work that he did. What have I got here? I love this version. I can't read my notes, Simon. I've got a sentence here that I can't read.
Here, borrow these.
Yeah. I've got my own. Thank you. People need to. Yeah. And I think the great thing about this version of the song too, with the opening track Crossroads, is that because it keeps in that familiar vein and interpretation that people know, when they go back and do some music archaeology themselves, they're going to find that that it's not going to be too dissimilar to what they've been presented to, because again, Clapton is a gatekeeper, Brad, and I'm sure when this DVD and VHS came out in 1990, a lot of people went back. You and I have discussed this many times. This is what made us go way back in Clapton's life. So, look, I love this version of the song, Brad. I've given this 9 out of 10, Brad.
Oh, Brad, you're. I can't hear you.
There you go. I had it.
It's muted himself. Furious.
I was still timed out mode from being furious about the last song. So, yeah, we're back on track with the rankings. I think we're a bit closer scored on this one. So, I'm going to put here very interesting version of White Room. Eric's vocal through the verses, the timing of the phrases is different to the Rock Night. It took the way he sings the verses is what I'm saying, where he chooses to come in singing each verse, slightly different to, say, the Rock Night, which I'm a little bit more used to hearing him sing it that way. It took a few minutes for me to get used to it. It's a wonderful performance by the band. The symphony sounds great behind it, adds a new dimension. Great vocals all around by the whole band. The lead vocals, by Greg Phillinganes, the way he sings that part of the song is great. The way Eric starts off the solo is worth the price of the box set. I've put that, okay? And the solo is outstanding.
Sure.
For that reason and that reason alone, I've given it a 10 out of 10. It's never a skip for me, guys. Simon.
Brilliant.
I think yes. I think this is one of the songs where the orchestra works much better. I think that the grand dramatic descending chords with the voices and the brass. I think that's fantastic. I think the orchestra, lays in those descending chords under the singing too, and I think that enhances it. I think that's turns it into a really good version of it. I particularly like in the second verse, Eric sings, "You said no strings could secure you at the station." So that's exactly how I feel about it. How did he know? Anyway, so and I think the orchestration under the chorus does work very well and gives it a dramatic. The middle eight also gives it a drama. I like the solo at the end. I think it's a great solo at the end. I think it gets a bit lost in the orchestration for me. As I said before, I think the strings and the guitar inhabit the same kind of harmonic space, and for me, I'd like the guitar up a bit, but that's a personal preference more than the quality of the solo and the playing, which I think is fantastic as usual, right up to Eric's song. I give this an 8 out of 10, but never a skip. I think I think this is where it works well, so I'd give it an 8 out of 10. That's fine. Andrew.
So the next track we're doing is like it's just a little piece called "Work for Me." Is that correct?
Oh, I haven't got that. I've got the concerto for electric guitar next.
Yeah.
Let me see.
Okay.
There's
So
one after it called a remark you made, which
remark you
is
made.
whether
Sorry.
it called,
Okay.
which is
So
yeah, that's after this.
Okay. So concerto. Look, guys. I don't know what I'm listening to here, guys. I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to be somebody that understands orchestration or symphony music, other than when it is connected to a song that I know or like, or if it's in a rock and roll context. Hence my introduction at the beginning of the show. Look, it's an interesting piece. I need to listen to this more and more. I need to probably come back in a year's time, Brad and Simon, and for us to talk about what this is or what this means clearly. And again, I don't want to interject here now with my conclusion. I'll save my conclusion for the conclusion, other than saying that this must have been important for Eric at the time to do this. Eric wanted to do this. He did it. So for that, Brad, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. It's going to be a skip most of the time, unless I'm going to be sitting down to listen to it, to renegotiate it, to come back and talk about it with you and the rock professor. That's all I have to say about this track.
Okay. Concerto for guitar, there's a lot going on. And like Andrew said, I'm not an expert at, by any means, I'm not an expert when it comes to symphony orchestras and what they do. But I think this is extremely well rehearsed, and there's a lot going on here. There's the symphony sort of comes in at the start. Eric plays really glassy strat tone sort of thing that we love. It's like a journey, I guess, the way that I could put this in my own description. There's a lot of dynamics going on with drop-offs and lifts. Eric weaves across the music, the symphony. It's very tight, very impressive. Like I said, the band's very rehearsed. It seems to be in two parts. This concerto for electric guitar. So there's a bulk part, and then there's a second part because there's a pause, there's applause, and then the second half of it comes in. With the second half, it's like a lighter sounding instrumental than the previous. Eric comes in near the start of the song. You can hear some wonderful melodic-y, bluesy lines. There's some double stops towards one of the changes there. The way he plays double stops, meaning that if you're not familiar with what they are, it's like where they play 2 or 3 notes together, like that sort of thing. Again, more vibrato, string bending. The symphony and Clapton trade licks at one time, which I thought was quite unique and pretty cool by the performance of the whole band and the way that they've constructed this thing. I've got to say, if I was up there on stage doing that, unless I knew this song backwards, I would have got lost. I think Eric's and the band have done an amazing job to play this song tight with the symphony orchestra behind them. The song does, well, the whole musical piece lends itself to orchestration. I'm extremely impressed. For a bluesman, Eric Clapton knows how to play melody and be part of a symphony orchestra in this sense, because I would never have dreamed in a million years that Eric would have done this prior to 24 Nights. And that, to me, alone is worth a solid 8 out of 10. Whether I listen to this every time or not, I don't know, gentlemen, but if I'm putting on the Orchestra Night CD or Blu-ray, I'll be listening to it, because that's why I'm putting the Orchestra Night on. So yeah, 8 out of 10 from you guys, and never skip.
And I hear what you're saying, and I'll add more about this track and my conclusion, bro, because I think you and I are dovetailing a little bit, on this too. So before I say any more, we need to hear what the rock professor has to say.
Yep.
Okay. So yes, concerto for electric guitar. I went, and one of the things I did was I went and listened to some other guitar concertos to get. And I know that's fair, but I wanted to get some kind of idea of a comparison on what other guitar concertos do. And I think that what I discovered that the thing about a concerto is, can a concerto I think that the major problem is that the guitarist will play a bit, and then you'll get the strings will play a bit, then the flutes or the woodwind will play something, and then somebody else will play, and you get these different parts, and they play a theme, and then they come back to it, and it's not everyone's playing all at the same time. And they play different themes, and then they kind of interlink the themes and stuff. And there's the composition of a concerto is quite a technical thing. I think that this, to me, is not that. There's a lot, the strings and the whole orchestra plays most of the time without a huge amount of dynamic, where everyone drops out, you just get the strings, everyone drops out, you just get the flutes or the oboes or the clarinets or whatever it is. And I think that for me, it felt like there was this great lush orchestra playing this stuff that Michael Caine composed, and then Eric sort of noodles over the top in a kind of, now I'm not saying that's true, I'm saying that's what it felt like to me, that Eric was kind of playing, and he plays beautifully, he knows he can play a melody and he can play but I think that if you're going to have a 29-minute piece, it's got to have a lot of dynamics, it's got to have a lot of integrated bits that weave in and out of each other. And I don't think that this does that. For me, it didn't do it. I think, it didn't do what happens in what I would call classical. I wrote down rather cheekily, more Salieri than Mozart, which is a bloody insult. And I apologize for that. I thought it was quite funny though. But so I would skip this. Absolutely. I don't think, I couldn't really, I listened to it, as I say, on different things. I listened to it 4 or 5 times, and I listened to some other background stuff to go with it. So I think I gave it a chance. I gave it a 4.5 out of 10. I think it's an admirable experiment, and I would understand why Eric would want to do it. And I completely reserve his artistic right to do it. For me, it didn't hit the mark at all. And I don't do this very often, but I really wanted it to end after about 10 minutes. I realized another 20 minutes to go, and I had to hold on, tight to get to the end. So yeah, 4.5 out of 10 from me, and probably a skip on most occasions, to be honest.
Okay, so yeah, and look, I know we've been a little bit serious here. I get where Brad's coming from, folks. Because I'm allowed to conclude. Remember, the person that introduces is allowed to conclude. And I get where the rock professor's coming from too. But this is not my conclusion, but I will add this, though, here now with you guys. I've read nobody else's work rankings. I haven't read Michael's articles. I know he's a very good friend of ours. I've not read any. No, on purpose, and because I wanted myself to come through and do this with the rock professor and Brad together, and then once we've presented this, go and read what other people have had to say. And we've defended this position on this channel many times. Reading about the music's important, because we've said this lots of times. When we understand what was happening about a song, or what was going on in somebody's life, or what was happening in the studio, or the technique that they used, has had a different perspective on how we went and heard it again, Brad. All of us have said that many times. So I'm looking forward to, over the next 12 months, reading and seeing what people have to say about this concerto. I don't even know I won't swear what the F a concerto is. So, and I don't, and don't shoot me for not wanting to know. It's does that so, but yeah, I Simon, I'm looking forward to reading what people have to say about the orchestra night in particular, and like I say, when we come back in 12 months' time and negotiate this, I'm looking forward to it. So thank you guys for being honest and brave with your rankings, because it's important that we do that, and again with everybody else, and Ellen and Ryan and everyone else's contributions too. So we get up to Simon and Brad. I don't know anything about the remark you made other than it was a jazz piece. I'm not familiar with it. Sounds good. It's it just sounds good. Are we ranking it separately? I'm giving it 9 out of 10. It just sounds cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, bro.
Yeah.
So
Well, I do.
A remark, you made. It's I guess for me, it's an opportunity to show off Nathan East.
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave it at that. It starts off. It's like a prelude to the next song, maybe, and it really gives a bit of a highlight for Nathan East to do a little bass solo.
Yeah.
On the fretless bass, upright bass, and it's a oh, sorry, he's playing the 6-string bass. My apologies. On the 6-string bass, and it's just a truly good opportunity to show off how amazing Nathan East is a bass player. Sounds great, and it interludes into the next song wonderfully. The way it's that's the intention of this for me. It's like an interlude into the
and it does
prelude.
it well.
Yeah, and
does it well.
It leans itself to 100% to being perfect for that. So for that reason and that reason alone, I gave it an 8.5, solid 8.5 out of 10. Never a skip.
No problem.
So yes, I can give you a bit more about this. So it is from the best-known Weather Report album, Heavy Weather. If you don't know it, go and listen to it. It's an absolutely brilliant. It's a 10 out of 10 record. It has Birdland on it, which I'm sure when you hear it, you know. This is Remark You Made. This is a beautiful piece with Jaco Pastorius playing the bass on it, and there's nobody greater than Jaco Pastorius for bass. Fantastic bass playing. It's a beautiful song, plenty of space, and a Remark You Made Weather Report is a 100 out of 10 song. It's a beautiful. And if you don't know Heavy Weather as an album, go and listen to it. It's a fantastic record. It's their best record, but and as I say, it's got Birdland on it as well. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant, great melody. You could tell I love this. I've had Heavy Weather for 40 years. Fantastic record. So I gave this a 7 out of 10. I think it's a nice little interlude from Swings Across. I think they do beautifully. I think Nathan East plays I thought the acoustic bass plays the Pastorius melody, and the orchestra play a nice counterpoint to it. 7 out of 10 for me. It's only 1:40. Definitely an interlude. But if you don't know Heavy Weather by Weather Report, this probably isn't something we do on here. But it's a fantastic record. 100 out of 10 record.
Yeah, I agree with you, Brad. I think it's it's a lead up, obviously, into Layla, which is the next track, isn't it? And we got a taste of Nathan East playing that fretless bass a little bit earlier on. So to get to hear Nathan play this piece in particular is always a thrill. And again, I'm going to reiterate a couple of points that we've made over the last couple of weeks. On some of the rock nights, we can hear Nathan East playing passing notes on tracks that we're familiar with. So, one of the key ingredients of the success of this package, Nathan East. So, well done, Nathan. If you guys follow Brad, you would have probably seen a couple of weeks ago, Brad did a Instagram clip of him playing an intro to Layla on his channel. We've put that up here on our channel here as a short, so go and check it out. Brad just nailed it. Layla is a song that all of us have spoken about here fondly. We've ranked the album that it's attached to. And to hear Layla on this version, on this package, Brad, for me, it's one of the best songs out of the package, in my opinion. The guitar tone is fantastic. I love Clapton's muscular vocals on this track. It's just famous. It's just fantastic. And that famous piano piece that we're all familiar with, that we've all spoken about many, many times, where it just gives us goosebumps, how it just comes in and just has its own musical piece. It's just fantastic. It's brilliant, the way that it works in with the orchestra. The rock professor mentioned at the top of the show about some of the songs loaning well to orchestration and some being completely hopeless to it. In my opinion, this is a track that just does it really, really well. The orchestration is just fantastic. The orchestra just give it some depth that we've probably never had on some of the rock versions, Brad, and some of the the versions that Clapton's done over the last 10, 15 years. This is my first Brad score. Have I given a Brad score?
I don't think so. Not tonight.
No. Don't think so.
No, I haven't. This is my first Brad score. Just the way that the orchestra has just incorporated itself into the song and taken it to another level. It's just fantastic. I look forward to hearing what my other co-hosts have to say. But it's a Brad score, Brad. It's one of the best tracks on the whole package.
Oh, yeah. Right exactly where you are with this one, Andrew. You know, Layla, you know, Eric winds up the song from that sort of remark you made, the Nathan East sort of highlight. He winds up the song and the way it starts. This is a sensational version of this song. Eric's vocal sounds outstanding. He's singing with everything he's got. He's clearly got a strong connection with this song as well. And that comes through in his playing on the guitar and his vocal. Phil Palmer takes the lead guitar duties during the verses to allow Eric to free himself vocally and not focus on trying to play that lick. And that would be something else, trying to play that lick and sing over. It's impossible, I think.
But can I just interrupt you, Brad? Bro,
Yep.
that is a very, very good point. And that's a very, very good point. Thank you for making that clear to people. You go and check that out, because that's not an easy lick to play, Brad, and you've proven that.
It's it takes a bit of it takes a little bit of practice to get that vibrato right on the and you would think that it would be something simple, but it's actually quite a unique way of playing. Like the way Clapton uses that vibrato, especially on his first finger on some of the sections of the riff. It's very hard to do.
Yeah.
But I mean, the background vocals in this are next level. The whole band sound fantastic, so good. The band's tight, well rehearsed. They're cooking. I don't condone smoking, but look, like I've said in the past, the cigarette and the headstock. But in all seriousness, the solo is outstanding, incredible solo, and Eric's on fire. I've mentioned this on the Rock Nights thing. I think he hardly looks at his guitar while he's playing this guitar solo. His head's tilted to the side and back a little bit. His long hair sort of swaying a little bit in the breeze. This is Eric at his best. Andrew mentioned about the piano part of the song that brings us into the outro piece of the song. And this is where the symphony orchestra really fills out the sound for me. And this song does lean itself to be orchestrated. I'll say that probably the best out of all the songs they picked, this one probably leans the most towards orchestration. And Greg Phillinganes plays that second part on the piano. The symphony orchestra fill out the sound. It sounds amazing. Eric plays some really delicate sort of bluesy stylings over the top of that section. And then once the drums come back in, it's game on. Phil Palmer and Eric are playing the harmonies together. Sounds beautiful. Eric launches into another guitar solo. It's tear-jerking. I'm watching this, and I've got goosebumps all over. And it happens to me every time I watch this. The end of the song comes, you know, the way Steve sort of hits that snare drum and the reverb, and then we all hear the song come to a close with all the massive accents, and the crowd's going wild. This is, aside from the original recording, this is one of my favorite versions of Layla. Outstanding. 100 plus out of 10, guys. Never a skip.
100 plus.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, I don't have a huge amount. I think for me, yeah, clearly strangely great big sound at the beginning, you know, with that, and great huge cheer. And one thing I would say is that the audience seemed to absolutely love it. I mean, there's a lot of, you know, cheering and stuff in there, and really, you know, a lot of applause and things between the tracks that I think is interesting. So clearly, being there was something of an event to do. So I think that there's no orchestration in the first bit, and then it's in the background for the second verse and the chorus. For me, it starts to get a bit messy before the instrumental breakdown. The orchestra starts to come in. There's a lot of it. It's very lush. I think I would prefer it myself to have been a bit more sparing and a bit, because I think you're right. I think Layla does lend itself to orchestration. I'm less convinced that I like the horns. I like the harp. I think they're really nice pieces of you know, color and interest in the song. And I think, I think that, you know, when at about 5 minutes there's a great big orchestra swell, I was reminded of Out of Africa. It gets very kind of cinematic at that point, as a piece. And as I say, when Eric's soloing and the orchestra's playing, for me there's a bit of friction between the two, because they're inhabiting the same harmonic space. And I would prefer maybe a bit less of the orchestra and a bit more of Eric, because I think he's on fire playing, and his solos are fantastic. And I think, you know, towards the end, for me, it got quite bombastic and kind of, you know, a bit overpowering, really. You know, and you feel like a bit of restraint might have been cool. But I gave this 8.5 out of 10. Not a skip. It's a good version, and I do enjoy it. But as I say, I'm just equivocal about the orchestra. Face facts, kids. You know, I think, you know, it's not my favorite version. Yeah, my favorite version is probably the original recorded version. I think that's just, you know, epic with the with Dwayne Allman's part and all of that. So I think
it's hard to beat that.
Nice to see them do both parts, though. Nice to see them doing both parts, and they do the piano bit at the end and stuff, and with the orchestra, and that works well. You know, that does work well. So
awesome.
Yeah, 8.5 out of 10 out of me. Not a skip, though.
So we're up to the last track, folks. Yay! We've done the marathon of the definitive 24 nights, folks, and what a ride it's been. We're not concluding yet, but there's a couple of points that the rock professor made on Layla that I'll pick up a little bit on my conclusion, if that's okay. If there is one criticism I want to make about this package, I think Sunshine of Your Love should have been before Layla. I would have been happy, Brad, had they finished this package with Layla. If there was one thing I could do. Sunshine of Your Love, Brad. Clearly you can see and hear that the band is having fun with this song. I mentioned earlier White Room and Can't Find Your My Way Home has been, informative and interesting tracks and important tracks, Simon, that Eric has been involved with in his career, and he's making this track available again for a new generation of listeners. Already mentioned that, and I have to mention that because I know personally I was working with a couple of guys that got into this album because of this track, because they were familiar with it from Cream. So I have to mention that. Brad, it was interesting hearing the orchestra play the riff.
Yeah.
I think they pulled it off. I think the orchestra pulled that famous riff off. I loved the nice crunch that Clapton got with his tone before the drum solo, bro. My gosh. I don't know what he was doing with his soldanos. I think they were on about 8.5, and I think he just went up and turned the soldano up, because we clearly know, as Brad has illustrated for you folks on the channel here, we've got the video up on the channel. He's probably got his mid boost already turned up anyway on this track, but he gets something nice and crunchy before the drum solo. Be interesting to hear what the Rock Professor has to say about this drum solo. I like this one because it's short and sweet.
Yep.
I too like a short drum solo. Brad, I wanted to give this a 10, then I was going to give it an 8, 9. You know what I'm going to do, mate? I'm going to give it a 9.5 out of 10, just because of that mid-punch crunch that Clapton gets before the drum solo. I love it. Never a skip, though. Never a skip, bro.
Yeah. Sunshine of Your Love, without doubling up on what you've said already, Andrew, for me, that classic riff, the way the song starts off with the symphony orchestra and all that, it sounds great. It's big. It's what's the word I wanted to say? It's extravagant the way they've done it. That they wanted to do it extravagantly.
Good word.
Eric's singing extremely strong in this. Greg's vocal is outstanding. Nathan, he sings great as well. There's a lot going on. The orchestra is really filling the gaps in this song. There's some big moments in the guitar solo from Eric. Then towards the end of the song, cutting it short, the song sort of speeds up to a point where, Eric starts playing unaccompanied, and that to me is my favorite part. I love that. I love hearing Eric on the fly, just right. The band stops, and Eric's got to do something, improvise off the cuff. And I'm sure similar sort of things probably happened on the night, but I've heard some bootlegs of and some of the stuff's actually on YouTube as well from the same sort of era of Clapton doing this Sunshine of Your Love, and the solo. He does something slightly different each time, but I love what he does here. It's like he's on the fly. I love how he does the pauses, like he's talking. I love that. Then we hear the drum solo. Ray Cooper joins in on percussion. That's fun to watch. I must admit, I like a bit of entertainment in live performances, not just all about the playing. It's fun. It's like when we did the Rock Nights and Tearing Us Apart. The band are just as entertaining as what's going on with the solo. I like that. Great ending. Eric really plays the outro fantastically. I gave it a 9.5 out of 10. Never a skip. Simon.
Oh, we're on the same money.
Yes.
So I return to our original question. I like a circular thing. We return back to the beginning, which is orchestras in rock. Discuss. Yeah, I think I was a bit less enamored with the orchestra on this than you guys were. I'm not sure that I think that it actually added a lot to this. I think this is a pretty straightforward rock thing. It's got a fantastic riff. iconic riff. I'm going to go, and I think that when the orchestra starts joining in, to me it got a bit messy, really, and a bit overwhelming. It was just too much going on, and I like a bit more space in it. There are bits I do like the horn solo where they quote Blue Moon at about 2 minutes 20, 2 minutes 18. They start playing Blue Moon. They do a couple of. That's pretty cool. I like a quote. I like a good quote. And there's nothing wrong with that. So that was good. I think that more horns and less strings would have gone well with me. I think rather than more strings and less horns. But I think Eric solos fantastically. I think he plays great over it. I think the band are hot, and they clearly played this a lot, know what to do. I wasn't entirely. I did write what possessed him to end with a drum solo as a kind of ending thing, as a bit of bookend, which I'm not entirely certain I understood why it was pretty much the last thing that was played. But it's fun, and Ray Cooper's a great showman. Puts on a show, so I don't mind it. It's fine. It's not that long as either. If it was a 20-minute thing, I think I might have gone off it swiftly. But and of course a big blues ending to finish off the concert. I gave it 7.5 out of 10, and not a skip from me.
Awesome, folks. So, like I said before we started talking about this song here. We've achieved something pretty amazing on the channel with these remastered definitive 24 nights. So by way of a quick conclusion from me before I pass it on to Brad and the Rock Professor, and I'm going to be talking specifically about the orchestra nights here, folks. The Rock Professor mentioned something about how the people were ecstatic when the cameras focus on the people at the Albert Hall. And I think that's the key thing here that we have to remember when we're listening to, or indeed, if you go and grab the Blu-ray and sit down and watch the Blu-ray is going to give you a different perspective. And I know that Brad's been banging on about this on the channel a lot of times, and he's incorporated in his rankings his interpretation from watching all these tracks visually as well. The Rock Professor and I haven't been that fortunate because of one reason or another. But I will say this, if you want to appreciate fully the orchestra nights, you're not going to get it, Simon and Brad, by listening to it, which kind of defeats the whole thing about what we do here on this channel, because we always stand by the vinyl record, don't we? But I'll say this, Brad, if you go and watch the Orchestra Night Blu-ray, you'll get an appreciation for a lot of the music in its totality, and you'll see the joy. And I think that's the key thing here, that you have to be there to appreciate an orchestra and rock and roll live, Simon. I don't think it translates well like a rock and roll or a blues song or a country song does on vinyl. That's my own opinion. But watching this, Brad, over the last couple of days, the DVD, the Blu-ray, that's never a skip. That's a Brad score. The Blu-ray is a Brad score, if that makes sense, even though the Rock Professor and I have given a couple of 5s. Does that make sense, folks?
It does.
Yeah, no, I think so. And I think that's right. You clearly hear from the audience reaction that it's a pretty ecstatic reaction. And clearly, live in the Albert Hall, the dramatic effect is a different thing to me listening to it on a CD in my front room, for sure.
Mate, I have to interrupt you, sorry, and do a special shout-out to Mike Brookfield. He's popped in to say hi. Another Clapton nut. Please, folks, go and check out Mike's channel. Mike, you'll have to come and do a show with us at some stage. I keep asking you. Sorry for interrupting, Simon.
Yes, welcome, Mike Brookfield. Not a name I know, so thanks for joining, Mike. I hope we haven't disgraced ourselves. Left furious. But yeah, so I think that would be my point backing up. Go on, Brad.
No. I thought you were done. I started talking over you, but continue, Simon.
right.
Continue.
No, I'd finished pretty much. No, it's fine.
Okay.
Carry on.
Just my conclusion, just quickly. I want to take into consideration the project that Clapton took on here was to do a blues run of gigs, the rock nights and the orchestration nights. So it was a project he wanted to do, and that's how I looked at this project of us actually ranking it. They're separate shows. They're separate things. There, as they were playing the orchestration nights, they were probably rehearsing for the rock nights, and they're doing different things. I have to say, credit to the whole band and Eric for what they actually achieved, because if you think about it, the rock versions of the song lean themselves a little differently to allowing the orchestration to be in there. The blues nights are a different monster on their own. So credit to them for, because I'll take a little bit of personal experience in it here. I've done 3 or 4 gigs in a week. One night's with a tribute band, one night's with a Guns N' Roses band, one night's with a blues band, one night's with a acoustic show, and then one night singing a Doors tribute. So it's hard to put yourself so well into each gig that way, and it's what I'm going to say here. It's a massive task to do that, to separate yourself for each single show that you're doing. Now, on a larger scale, Clapton's done a rock night, he's done blues nights, and he's done orchestration. And the orchestration nights were really well rehearsed and tight. They weren't as improvised as, say, the blues nights. And the rock nights are very, very well rehearsed with some slight improvised parts in there. So my conclusion is the orchestration nights, which we've just done now, I think was a massive feat for the whole band, including Eric. And I think outstanding job, guys. Well done. And thank you, Eric, for finally giving us, after 32 years, this footage and this package, because I've been talking about this stuff for 30 odd years to people, that there must be more material, and here it is. So thank you. That's my conclusion.
Well done, bro. Simon, you got something you want to add before we end this epic show?
Yeah, I have. Whatever nonsense I've been talking about, my feelings about orchestras in rock, and and where they fit in, and how this particular fits in. Clearly, the audience thought it was fantastic, and that counts for a lot. And as I said at the beginning, I completely reserve Eric's right to, on his artistic journey, to experiment and do different things.
Correct.
And clearly, if somebody, as I said earlier, somebody came and said, "Oh, by the way, do you want to do an orchestra thing with somebody you've worked before, Mike Kamen? And do you want to do it at the Albert Hall?" Nobody's going to go, "You know what? I think I'll pass." You're going to go, "I'm doing that for the experience and everything else," aren't you? As a thing, And the fact that I'm more equivocal about it is fine, but doesn't mean a huge amount. And I think that that having it is, and him doing it is part of his musical journey, and I take my hat off to him for doing it. I take my hat off to him for for approaching it seriously, and doing something interesting, because it is interesting, and some of these things are quite difficult, and but I've really enjoyed doing this week, even if it I haven't been that upbeat about some of it. I still really enjoyed listening to the stuff, and because a challenge is a challenge, isn't it? And being challenged by things is really important in music. So I feel that 10, he gets 100 out of 10 for me for doing it.
Well, you're a classic,
even if I'm not that enamored.
You're a classic example then, Simon, of watching the Blu-ray, and then in 12 months' time we'll come back and talk about your experiences after watching the Blu-ray, because I think that may enhance something, and indeed for anybody else that hasn't watched it, and negotiating this guitar concerto thing. I'm going to be certainly looking forward to reading and listening to what other people have to say about it now. It's been a pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, hanging out with the Rock Professor and Brad for over 2 hours, and with you guys as well. We won't do a shout out. We're going to say thank you as ever for hanging out with us. You know that you guys are really, really important. We're going to be coming back hopefully next week, and we still haven't finished talking Clapton, but we're going to get some of our friends on here to talk Clapton with us, so we won't be ranking anything. It'll be just a bit of a conclusion, Brad and Simon, and an opportunity for Jim, Brody, and maybe Michael to come on and share some thoughts for an hour and a half or so. Should be good.
Thank you, gents.
Yeah.
And who's ranking the next album after this? We have to go back and have a look and see who ranked.
We'll talk
Is it you?
in the green room. We'll talk in the green room.
All right. Bye-bye, folks. Thank you for hanging out with us.
Yeah, take care all. See you next week. Check it out.